everyone, we're back today with a 2003 India-made Jackson. This will be the first episode in a series on how to tear down and customize and repaint a guitar. You see some body damage here that I'm pointing out. Nice humbucker single HSS configuration in the pickups there. Has kind of the standard tremolo, volume tone, and a 5-way selector switch. Let's go ahead and get started with the strip down. I like to get these magnetic bowls from Harbor Freight, and I use 2 of them when I'm organizing the parts. Larger pieces of the bridge, tremolo springs, end pins, knobs, tuners, etc. will go in the larger bowl, and I'll put all the screws and little Allen wrench screws and tiny springs and washers and nuts that go around potentiometer stems all in the smaller bowl. I'm not going to be using a heavy-duty power tool like this DeWalt that you see here. It's really easy to strip your screw holes with the torque from these instruments, or to drop the instrument on the guitar and chip the finish or do other damage to the neck or fretboard or pickups or bridge that you don't want. So what I like to use instead is like a low-power battery-operated, like AA battery-operated, like Black & Decker electronic screwdriver instead of a power tool. So I'm going to start here today by pulling the 2 larger screws that hold in the 5-way selector switch. These typically go in through the top into threaded holes on either side of the switch body itself underneath, and that's what pins it up against the wood housing. So you see I'm putting my screws in my small collector dish there. This is my favorite of these electronic screwdrivers. I see them at Target. They're weak, they don't have a lot of power, but they're perfect for working on a guitar. Here I've taken off the first knob, the volume knob. That one slid right off, but the next one was proving to be a little bit of a sticker. So I've come back with a little bit of protective furniture film, and I was going to try to pry the knob off using a spanner wrench. But I found out that this knob was actually fastened with a retention screw on the side, unlike the first knob, which was just a slide-on. You can see here the original in my right hand with the retention Allen wrench screw, and the aftermarket slide-on in my left. And here we're going to use the spanner wrench to loosen the nuts around the potentiometer shafts. The shaft goes through the thin top of the body from the control cavity recess in the back of the guitar, and these nuts screw down around the threaded shaft of the potentiometer, and these little spanner wrenches are great for a variety of sizes of these, just to loosen it and then remove it with your fingers. I'm going to go ahead and use the electronic screwdriver to back out the screw holding in the end pins. Some people call these strap buttons. I believe the technically correct term is end pin, but I often refer to them as strap buttons or strap knobs myself. With both the end pins out, I'll go ahead and remove the screws from the humbucker pickup surround. Moving on to the screws holding in the single coils. I couldn't quite get at them with the electric screwdriver, so I'm using a small mini Phillips tip screwdriver that I use for like eyeglass and watch repair. Always have one of these or 2 around. So I won't be able to remove the pickups here because there's wires going from them through the guitar body to the back that need to be unfastened first. So we're going to tackle that next. Turning the guitar over, we see the rest of the screws we're going to need to remove to finish disassembling the guitar. But before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and support the guitar on a couple of foam pads from some extra packaging that I have around, just to prevent the weight of the guitar from pressing on any bits of metal or screws that fall on the bench and mar the face of the guitar. And now we'll remove all the screws holding on both the control cavity cover and the tremolo cavity cover. Now these screws retaining the tremolo spring clip here, claw, are very, very tightly secured in the guitar, so they may be the one place where I have to cheat and carefully use the power drill here to get those out. And now with those out and the claw freed, I'll go ahead and disconnect the tremolo springs from the tremolo block and the tremolo claw. Set those aside in my large magnetic bowl. Notice just under my left hand here, the tremolo claw has a wire soldered to it. This wire goes through the body of the guitar into the control cavity where it connects to the ground out. Because this claw is also connected to the strings via the tremolo bridge and the springs, it grounds the guitar body and strings, which definitely makes the guitar safer from an electrical standpoint and also noticeably reduces hum when the player is not touching the string. Now I've found a little block of rosewood here behind the tremolo block, which was actually serving to lock the bridge in place. So that tremolo had been disabled by the previous owner. Getting started on disassembling the electronics here. There's a lot of ways you can go about this, and it totally depends on the state of the prior work and the components and how much you want to save or preserve from the existing wiring. It's possible to remove the whole wiring bundle in a way that it can just be put back in and reused. Or you can just clip it all out and throw it away because you intend to rewire the guitar with fresh everything to give it the cleanest sound possible. That's what I'm going to be doing in this case, but I'm still going to go ahead and break this stuff apart piece by piece to show you how it's done. Notice just off camera here, I'm actually taking a picture of this wiring with my cell phone camera because a reference is just worth 1,000 words later when you're trying to put it back together. Now I'm removing the screws securing the jack plate on the end of the guitar because I at least need to clip that wire or unsolder it and remove it in order to remove the jack. I've got a standard Weller desktop soldering iron. I just used that to melt the solder, attaching the ground wire and lead wire to the two leads on the jack itself. I've set that aside. Now I'm using the same hot soldering iron to melt the solder on the tremolo claw and free the ground wire from that. Pull that back through into the body. And there's a wire presumably heading into the bridge. Just checking how many positions are on the switch there. It's definitely 5. And those are the lead wires from the pickups coming in that need to be removed from the switch in order to free the pickups and remove them from the front. Since this exact wiring configuration on this 5-way switch determines how the tones blend and the pickup switch behaves from mixing the pickups, I'm taking a very detailed picture of it here so I can reproduce that if I want to. And now I'll go ahead and use the hot soldering iron to melt the solder on the last couple of wires on the switcher. I'll go ahead and melt off all the leads on the potentiometers. Probably a couple wires here I don't care about that I'll just cut. But typically with a tone knob, it's going to have a tone capacitor already soldered on it. And if the tone knob works great, you might want to preserve that, as I've done here. Just cutting some excess wire that I'm going to replace anyway. And now we can turn the guitar back over and pull out the pickups, as you see me doing here. Now we'll go ahead and pop out the 4 neck screws. You can really do these in any order. When you put them back in, it's nice to do them opposites. And don't screw them all down, like one down at once. Screw them all down in small increments so that they seat evenly. You can see here I'm kind of wrestling with pulling the neck out of the neck slot. Typically these are a tight fit, and if you rip it out too fast, you can chip off bits of finish and wood right around the thin little walls of the neck pocket, which I'm desperately avoiding doing here. And I think I finally figured out that it just needed to wiggle side to side a little bit to slide out. But definitely take your time with those, and you're left with a stripped guitar body. Now this could be chemically stripped or heated and scraped or sanded. down to wood again. It doesn't even have to have the finish completely removed to tack a new finish onto it. So I probably won't even bother stripping that bare, but I will definitely sand it rough so that a new finish grips and hit it with a layer of primer. But let's move on to the tuning keys. I'm going to go ahead and start with my little mini Phillips screwdriver, removing the tiny set screw. This screw doesn't actually hold the tuning keys in, it just holds them in one place. It keeps them from rotating laterally in their slots that have been drilled in the headstock. So you're going to pop all these out, and then we will loosen the nuts on the top side using the spanner wrench. So I'll just figure out if I'm using the right side here, and then you just need to crack each one loose so that you can finger loosen them and they come right out. And with all of those little retainer washers and bolts loosened, the tuning key should pop right out. The frets I've left on the neck because they're actually quite fresh. This guitar didn't see a lot of play or wear, so I'll be able to redress and crown those frets and level them no problem. But I will take off the truss rod cover here and set that aside so that I can straighten the neck easily when it is time to level those frets. And with that, this teardown is about complete. Thanks everyone for watching. Remember to like and subscribe for more videos like this. And I will be back with part 2 where we begin customizing the body and preparing it for a new coat of paint.